Hello, my name is Dennis, and welcome to my trailer park white trash mobile home kitchen. I really do live in a mobile home, in a trailer park, and this is my kitchen.
What I want to make today is something called Timballo, or timbal, or timbal, I've heard it pronounced, or seen it pronounced different ways. If those words sound familiar, it's because it's named after a drum. It's Italian. It's made with layers of a starch food. Could be potatoes, could be small pasta, could be rice. I'm going to use Arborio rice. And then layers in between of usually vegetables. I'm going to be using eggplant today, fried eggplant, but I'd like to try this sometime this summer with some fresh squash. You could use zucchini. There's different things you can do, and that would be to make it as a side dish. If you wanted to make it as a main dish, you could add meat to it. Kind of reminds me a little bit of shepherd's pie. It's a relatively easy dish to make, and it's versatile because you can do different things with it. You can even use up your leftovers. I mean, leftovers, zucchini, whatever, you could put those in between. Corn. I mean, to me, it's a great way of hiding your leftovers and turning it into something fancy, because it does look fancy when it's all cooked up. So, having mentioned all that, let me get into the ingredients that I'm going to be using for making my timballo. For my timballo, I want some eggplant, obviously. I waited a long time to get eggplant. For weeks, we didn't have it in the stores here in Southern California. I couldn't find it anywhere. We finally got eggplant back in the store. You need anywhere from 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds. I have 1 3/4 pounds here between these two eggplants. Then I have a couple of tablespoons of butter. You need a small onion. I'm going to be using about half of this onion. This is a medium-sized onion. I have 2 cups of Arborio rice. You can use 2 bouillon cubes, or I've got 1 tablespoon of granulated bouillon, either chicken flavor or beef flavor. I'm using chicken. A quart of water, that's for boiling the rice. Olive oil for frying. 1/2 cup of freshly grated Parmesan or Romano cheese. I'm using Romano. 2 tablespoons of fine breadcrumbs. 4 ounces of mozzarella cheese, either shredded. I chop mine fine into little cubes. I don't have a coarse shredder. And then some freshly ground black pepper. I'll be using that. 6 to 8 basil leaves. I have 6 here because these are rather large leaves. I'm going to be cutting these into a chiffonade for garnish. And then I have some of my homemade marinara sauce. This doesn't go into the timballo. This is used afterwards. You heat this and you use this for garnishing the timballo at the table. So those are the ingredients that I'm going to be using for making my timballo. Here's an area over which there is no little dispute. I've seen people practically go to war over this. Do you peel your eggplant or not? I don't. I have no problems using unpeeled eggplant before I cut it up. Some people insist that you must peel your eggplant. It's a matter of choice. Whatever is up to you, whatever you feel like doing. I'm going to pull these leaves off carefully because this stem can have sometimes prickers on it, and I don't want to get stuck. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to slice these up. This is another area of some dispute, less dispute than the peeling. Do you salt the eggplant or not? I find that salting the eggplant in advance takes some of the sting, the bite out of it. I find that some eggplant has a little bit of a bite to the tongue. And by salting my eggplant in advance and letting it sit in salt and then draining it, it seems to make it milder. So that's what I like to do. And a lot of cooks, they do salt their eggplant. I'm going to cut this about 3/8 of an inch thick. I love eggplant, so I cut it a little on the thick side. I have my salt shaker here, and I'm going to just generously sprinkle each of these pieces with salt and stack them in this bowl and let them sit for about an hour. And what will happen is the salt will draw out some of the liquid, and then I'll rinse these really well to get rid of the salt. Rinse them in cold water and then fry them. Okay, I'm coming up on the last of my slices of eggplant here. Some people also stack these in a colander to let the water drain out from underneath. Then I'm going to cover this with plastic wrap. And again, let this sit for about 1 hour. That salt will draw out some of the moisture from the eggplant. I think it makes it more mild. I'll rinse it really well and then start sauteing my sliced eggplant. I have my skillet heating here on the stove. I'm going to take some of this butter and get it melting in that skillet. Meanwhile, in a saucepan, I'm heating that 1 quart of water. I'm going to bring it to the boil and then dissolve the bouillon cube in it. And then when I'm ready to start cooking my rice, I'll just run that boiling water into my skillet to start the rice cooking. All right, my butter has calmed down there. It was all sizzling and bubbling. That's a good indication that it's warm. I'm going to run my onions in there. You can hear them sizzling, so my pan is hot. And I'm going to cook these about 6 to 8 minutes until they're translucent over medium-high heat. My chopped onions now have been cooking for about 7 minutes. I put a little bit of water in once in a while just to make sure they wouldn't brown too much. You can see they're just lightly starting to change color, almost like they're beginning to caramelize. So I'm going to pour my rice in next. Stir that in. My water did come up to the boil, so I added my stock to it. Looks good. I'm going to cover this, reduce my heat to low, and set a timer for 16 minutes. My timer has gone off for my rice. I'm just going to check this for moisture. There's still a little bit of moisture in there. And I can tell by looking at the color of this rice that it's not completely soft. I think I'm going to go another I don't know, maybe 3 more minutes on this. Give this a chance to absorb a little more liquid. Let's see what a difference 3 minutes made. I'm not seeing any liquid bubbling up. And look at that, underneath, no liquid on the bottom. So just those extra 3 minutes was all that was necessary. I'm going to turn this heat off. Give this just a light stir. And then set that aside to cool. I've got a skillet here heating over high heat. Going to use up some more of that butter I measured off earlier. And some olive oil. I read somewhere that the Italians never mix butter and olive oil together in a skillet. And my olive oil. Eggplant's going to absorb a lot of oil. So I'll probably be adding more butter and or oil to the skillet as I fry my eggplant. Okay, that seems like it's settled down, the butter. Almost. I can hear some sizzling. And that should be ready to start frying. I have my eggplant that I placed on a paper towel. And then pressed with paper towels to dry as best I can. These are ready to start turning over. See how they've browned a little bit? And I'm going to pour some more oil in there, in among the slices. I think this is about ready to take out of the pan. Yes, the other side is browned. So I'm just going to move these to a plate that I've lined with paper towels over here. There is my eggplant. I have 2 layers, actually a third if you want to count this little one on top. I didn't quite have room for that one. I'm going to let those drain and cool, and that's it. The cooking is done, at least at this stage. My rice has cooled to the point where I've moved it to this bowl. You obviously don't want to do this step while it's hot. I'm going to stir in my Romano cheese. If you did this while the rice was still hot from the frying pan, the cheese would melt and start getting stringy. So you want to get this cooled down. It can be warm, obviously. Room temperature is fine. That's it. Not going to get fussy with that. So that's ready. My eggplant is ready. My next step is to start building my timballo. I've got here a 9-inch springform pan. And I'm going to butter this well. I want to butter completely up the sides. Okay. And then I've got my breadcrumbs. I want to make sure that these breadcrumbs are... I'm going to get this out of the way because that's going to make a mess. This pan is well coated with breadcrumbs, clear up to the sides. It's okay if you get some on the counter. And then I'm going to put plenty on the bottom. First of all, get that all well coated all the way around. The reason why I'm putting plenty on the bottom down here is because these are going to brown. And when I unmold my timballo, the bottom will be the top. And those browned breadcrumbs will give me a really nice look to the top of my timballo. Battery check, sound check. To start building my timballo, I'm going to start running my rice in there. I want about a third of this rice in the bottom. And that's about a third. Then I like this bent wok spatula for doing this. It makes it easy to press this down inside. When pressing it down, try not to scrape the sides of the timballo pan, the springform pan, with the spatula, because you don't want to scrape off the breadcrumbs. All right. So then I want to start layering in my eggplant. I'm going to start placing my eggplant in here. Oh boy, right away, my mouth is watering and my stomach is growling. I love working with eggplant. I know this is going to taste so good. You can split these up to arrange the pieces because it doesn't really matter. It's all going to get buried under more rice anyways. And then I want to sprinkle that with some freshly ground black pepper. And this is some of my cubed mozzarella cheese. I would regard this as optional. I like mozzarella cheese. My mom used to put it in lasagna. This dear sweet friend of mine from Portchester, New York, when I would make my eggplant Parmesan, she would have to lift the mozzarella out if I used it because it didn't work very well with her dentures. So that's how I learned to regard this as optional. So that means adding more rice. And put in some more eggplant. Just enough eggplant to fill all my spaces. Again with the mozzarella cheese. I'll put the last of that in there. And again, some grating of black pepper. And the last of the rice. And you can see how that just fills a 9-inch spring-form pan. So this is ready to go. I'm going to set my oven for 375 degrees with a rack positioned in the middle of the oven, and this will get baked for 45 minutes. My timballo has come out of the oven, and I'm going to let it rest for about 10 minutes before I take it out of its spring-form pan. And what I've done here is I've assembled my basil leaves. I'm going to roll these up. I've kind of stacked them up one on top of the other, and I'm going to roll these up into forming what looks like a little green cigar. And I'm going to chop these into a chiffonade. And to do a chiffonade, you cut really, really tiny, like 1/8 inch strings. That's a chiffonade. Larger would be a julienne. So I'm just going to very carefully cut these up. And just in time for a train to go by. Okay. And that is my chiffonade. That's going to be to cover the top. My timballo now has been cooling for 10 minutes. I've got my sauce heated. Just going around this with a plastic fork. I like to use a plastic fork so that I don't scratch my spring-form pan. All right. And let's see how this goes. Is this cool enough that I can handle it? Yes, it actually is. Didn't need these gloves after all. And now I just want to open this up. This did not brown the way I was hoping it would on the bottom. Sometimes the breadcrumbs on the bottom brown a lot. And in this case, they didn't brown very much. So I'm going to put these under the broiler and just brown the top of this a little bit. And then this will be ready to serve. So there is my timballo. I have let that brown a little bit under the broiler. Now I bring in my chiffonade. I'm looking at this, and some of this looks more like it's julienne rather than chiffonade. And just decorate the top. You don't need to use all of this basil. Oh, I just saw a moth come in here. The door is open, but the screen is closed. A little bit more. And I think that's good enough. Just lightly decorate it with chiffonade. And then we cut that and we put the sauce on top. So let me show you that next. Now I want to plate this. I took a rather old knife out of the drawer because I don't want to, against that hard plate, use one of my good knives. This is sharp. My goodness, this knife is so old. I got this back when I was in college. So you cut into it just like you would a piece of cake. And then lift it out. And there it is. Put it on your plate. Like so. And then you bring in your sauce. And there is some Timballo ready to eat. The last step is to see how good that tastes. Here I am going to taste my Timballo and see how it came out. Well, this looks good. It smells good. See, I love the flavor of eggplant. The eggplant has a nice flavor in this, but it's mild because there's not a lot of eggplant. There's just a couple of layers of eggplant, but 3 layers of rice and onion. There's cheese in there, 2 different kinds of cheese. There's the Romano and the mozzarella, then topped with spaghetti sauce and basil. Oh, that is so good. Okay, excuse me. I gotta go eat my Timballo. For a printable PDF copy of this recipe with step-by-step photographs, visit the White Trash Cooking website and look on the home page or in the recipe archive.